Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 10 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I'm Rod. I'm a little bit more awake now. We record these in, batches and stuff. And the previous one that we just recorded, I was still had some brain fog from jogging 2 days ago. But 40.
That's the best line ever. I have brain fog from jogging 2 days ago.
Yep.
I'm going to blame it on the barometric pressure because we're recording this just after Hurricane in Los Angeles. Right. I'm JC, and I'll promo a thing in November, but at any point leading up to November, raising money for Extra Life with the Children's Hospital of LA via Extra Life. If anybody does a $50 donation, and I'll put a link in there, you will get a personalized cameo-style video of me chugging Smirnoff Ice for the kids.
Oh, wow. There's another line you haven't heard in a while is chugging Smirnoff Ice for kids.
I hope that's only literally associated to us and nobody else, because nobody should be drinking Smirnoff Ice for kids. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series. We're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode that we can find, along with some bonus episodes. Our first series started with the original 1992 X-Men, the animated series, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which still technically at the time of recording has not been pushed into 2023. But because it is still 2023 and not here yet, we needed to find some other shows that we could cover.
And they're probably not going to pull Beyonce and just be like, surprise, album out at midnight.
Literally the day after the Ahsoka finale is when they're just going to bam, X-Men.
Actually, you know what? Depending on how bad streaming is going for them, they might be like, we need to keep people.
Yeah. Oh my God, why is everybody canceling their subscription?
Yeah, it's not because we raise prices and crack down on passwords.
Do you want to just skip to the spot that says that we're not sponsored by Disney Plus?
Yeah, we're definitely not sponsored by Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way. And also other reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. Also, don't check out any TikTok comments until after you've seen the concurrent episode, because I didn't even think about this. It makes sense now. If we're posting about an old show and the fan base for that show comes in the comments, they're talking about stuff that happened in the show, even though we haven't seen it.
So, which is great, because that's engagement bait, and TikTok loves that shit.
Yeah. Which it makes sense. I'm gonna have faith and think that people aren't purposely doing it. I didn't think about it until the last one. We had both made a comment on a clip that we posted that I guess kind of sparked a conversation from this season's finale, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense that people would be talking about this. So
don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, which I will call it that until the day that certain person dies, and Facebook. Of course, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast services. If you're finding us on YouTube, which for some reason, 2 episodes ago, actually 3 from the one you're listening to right now, had a spike in views of a day one upload that's nice. More than the previous 6 episodes combined with how many people watched it on day one, and I don't know why.
That's awesome. Hello, YouTube. That's our home. All the other platforms have been fine except for the X one, but YouTube is where we all started, so glad to see people on here. And we keep threatening to make a video episode so you can see either my facial reactions to stuff I don't know about X-Men, or JC's reactions to stuff I don't know about X-Men.
Well, we have to we have to do at least one episode where it's us on video to get the facial reactions. We are going to do video game stuff at some point, as soon as Rod has a working car in 2025, most likely. And I got another idea that I'm literally leaving just as a tease that we have to talk about later.
Okay, so. Definitely. And also, right now, I am borrowing a mutual friend's car. I'm not going to say which one because it's a very identifiable vehicle. And
okay. Got you.
And it's not that it would dox them, but you will find out where I live if you see this vehicle.
It's who I think it is, isn't it?
Probably. It's
yeah.
Between the two of us, who has the wildest car?
Yeah, we know.
That they won't be driving in a while. Anyway, that's me. And now into the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 10. Yeah, sorry. Title Shadowed Past. I had to glitch there for a second. It aired March 31st, 2001. Currently sits at a 7.5 star rating on IMDb.
Also, second episode in a row that the title fucked with my head, and I thought it was going to be something completely different.
Like about Kitty?
I thought it was going to be about Kitty.
Yeah, me too. I don't know a lot about X-Men in the comics and stuff, but I know Shadowcat.
Yep. Nope. Nope. Survival of the fittest, not about apocalypse. Right. Shadowed past, not about Shadowcat.
So I know this is not the title of the next episode, but the next episode's like the magnetism of the magnet man, and it's about the Blob.
I mean, that's a little extreme, Rod. Maybe like magnetic personality.
Right. Yeah. Or
The brain fog's still kicking in. It's fine.
Or this episode is about Magneto and it's about the Blob.
I love you're just like losing your shit at this point.
Yep, definitely. I'm not even drinking. I'm drinking water. Maybe it's LA water. Anyway, so this episode opens up at the mansion.
It has happy music, is the way I described it. It was very happy tone to the music playing.
Yeah, it was like stock pop music. And I guess that's because we're zooming in on Rogue and Kitty's room. I don't know if we knew before that Kitty and Rogue were roommates.
We did not.
Which is funny because it's both a little surprising, but also makes sense of why they were fighting a couple episodes ago, because they were probably at each other's necks.
Right. Like if you're always up on somebody's business and sharing a room with them constantly, like that's got to be frustrating.
And especially, I know they're high school kids, but this is close enough to the age. If anybody's ever had a college roommate, at some point, even if you got along great, there was an era that you had where you weren't.
When you have to share a room with somebody, it's one thing to share a living space like an apartment or a house, but when you have to physically share the same room that you're sleeping in with people, you get in at least one argument. There's no way that doesn't happen at least once.
And we saw in this episode that they actually go to sleep at the same time because their beds are like feet apart from each other.
Yeah.
And Rogue is talking to someone who, minor spoiler, drives me crazy. We never find out who she's talking to.
No reveal who she's talking to on the phone.
But she's thanking them for letting her borrow a book about werewolves, or there's a twist at the end of the book about a werewolf.
With somebody like not knowing they were a werewolf or something like that, yeah.
Which had to have been a nod to when she kind of werewolfed out a little bit. Or maybe that's why she liked it or something. I don't know.
I mean, she was also reading Dracula in a previous episode, so like this is kind of her MO.
Yeah, she likes the Universal monsters.
No.
Or that the books weren't the Universal. Anyway, you know what I mean. Those monsters.
Yes.
And they time it perfectly. I guess they just got into each other's rhythms and stuff because she's winding down the phone call as Kitty's already getting into bed and they turn out the lights and they're both falling asleep.
Right. She says that she has to head to bed because she has 3 finals the next day. Also, did you notice Kitty had a stuffed animal?
Yeah.
Did you see what the stuffed animal was?
Look at maybe a dinosaur or something?
Little dragon, which is a reference to Kitty's dragon Lockheed.
Okay, so now, it's coming together for me now, but only because of something you had explained to me a couple of years ago that I did not know. Because I went and saw...
Again, this is where a video episode would be great, because I just cocked my head like, where is Rod going with this? Because I don't remember this.
I went and saw the New Mutants during lockdown at a drive-in movie. Because I believe Tenet and New Mutants were the first movies to come out during lockdown.
Yes. And New Mutants was put out to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had already been like delayed by years anyway.
Yes. And it had gone through like 3 reshoots and like 3 years of delay.
And I went to go see it because it was like, there were literally 2 movies in existence at that point that you could see out in theaters. And like I said, I was taking advantage of the drive-in movies because, you know, to be safe, but also for me, kind of cool. I didn't usually get to do that. I tried my best to enjoy it. Yeah, and even then, because I was trying my best to enjoy it, I didn't hate it. And you hadn't seen it yet. And so I think it was on maybe a Facebook comments or something. You were asking me about like how Magic was doing or something like that. And I was like, was that the racist girl with the dragon? And you were like, wait, she got him? And then that's when you explained like that dragon usually goes with Kitty.
Yes.
And so I was like, yeah, no, for some reason, they got this fantastic award-winning actress, Anya Joy-Taylor, to be like randomly racist in this movie.
Yep. There was no reason for Magic to be like, Magic is just like a not happy person, but she's not racist.
Yeah, I mean, they established in the rest of the movie that she's a bitch, and that was, yeah, you get it. Okay, character, that's whatever. But then, yeah, the magic dragon thing, and it was like, so the dragon was just like a MacGuffin for them, right? Because she didn't have any precedent with that character. She has precedent with Kitty.
Dude, I have 0 memories of New Mutants, and I watched that movie stone cold sober. Right. So I can't even tell you what part Lockheed played in that movie.
Yeah.
So,
but I guess so now it makes sense that you explain it, but I didn't register at the moment because I still register it with Magic,
which is the worst way to have any association to Lockheed, is to associate it to the New Mutants movie.
Right? Yeah.
By the way, we are 30 seconds into the episode and we've been recording for 11 minutes.
Yeah. So it cuts over to Rogue having a nightmare, which actually for a second I thought was transitioning again, because that's how the transitions in this series works, is they do a bunch of like flash cuts.
Yeah, they do the flash cuts.
And so it's like, no, we're still in the same scene. And then the scenes that her nightmare was, I thought we were going to go into It's All a Dream episode about Frankenstein.
Or like a Jubilee's fairy tale.
Yeah, because the lab in the castle, that sentence.
Yes.
It's a very specific like image you get, but also the way they set it up, it seems surreal even outside of the evolution world. And then you just hear a voice, and
I mean, I literally wrote Frankenstein's lab.
Yeah, and especially because you hear a woman's voice saying like, "What have you done to him, you monster?" And I was like, okay, so this is a Frankenstein story or something,
right?
And then this is where, so I always watch stuff with captions. This is where captions spoiled the reveal for me
because it said it was Mystique saying it.
It said Mystique, and I was like, "Oh, Mystique," and then I get there, it's like hooded woman. Oh, I'm not supposed to know who this is, but I can't see your face.
But what I did notice is, as you do get the visual reveal of Mystique, they were wearing gloves, and that was their way of like having it be a later in the episode reveal that it was Mystique, because the hood is covering them the entire time, and you don't see their hands.
Yeah, the blue.
Yeah.
And so she runs out of the castle with a baby in her arms, and the silhouette of who I initially thought might have been Sinister, especially with the whole like lab setup and everything.
Right.
But they reveal more and more of under his silhouette, and so you start to see even before they reveal anything it's Magneto, like you said.
Yeah, it's very clearly Magneto, and they didn't even try to hide it at that point. But I did notice as she was running into the snow, there was like a half second where you kind of see the baby, and I was like, is the kid blue? And then it was like, okay, got it.
Yeah. I don't know if I think because I saw Mystique in the captions, I was like, oh, this is gonna be about Nightcrawler.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you start realizing that it's her, and of course recognizing the voice actress and stuff like that, but it was like, oh yeah, they're actually like, if you frame by frame go through it, there's definitely like more than just a hint. It's like, okay, there's a blue baby. So
yeah. Blue baby. And then we find out that Magneto has new powers where he can control wolves.
I think they're just trained well.
Right.
I legit do not think that's a power scenario. I think that's just they listen to him.
I was just making a joke. It's like Mr. Burns' hounds, because initially it looks like they're just wild wolves that are around, and I still think they might have been intended to be that, but they were very much on Magneto's side.
Yes.
And they chased Mystique to a rope bridge, and I kind of get excited whenever this happens in an action thing or show or whatever, because like, how are the writers going to approach the rope bridge dilemma? Because it's dangerous. And then, if you've watched Fast 9, I guess if you don't want spoilers for Fast 9, skip ahead 20 seconds. You can just drive up the rope bridge and defy physics. But, there's always the thing of like, oh, now you have to go on a certain pattern because certain planks are falling out. They teased it, and then they just didn't do anything with it. Yeah,
it was just the arbitrary rope bridge. Because we had a rope bridge in X-Men 92 in it was the Amazon.
Yeah. And so there's a little bit. Magneto doesn't even really do anything. He just kind of literally hovers, and the wolves kind of scare, unknown woman.
Woman.
Yeah, and she drops the baby, which is horrifying. Even in animation, is like terrifying.
Yeah.
And she watches the baby fall into the river. Is like, I don't even know if a mutant magic baby would survive that. Like that's like they're implying that he's a newborn.
Yeah. or still small enough that it's in a swaddle,
Yeah. And then Magneto, he's less good than he was in the 92 series.
Yes, this is definitely a more just like pure evil Magneto, I feel like.
Because he doesn't even wince, and he just turns around and goes back to the castle.
Yeah. And that's where we get the wake-up scream from Rogue.
Yeah.
How does Lucy react to this Rogue screaming compared to Lenore's screams in X-Men 92, which we're gonna get in X-Men 97?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, Lenore is in a whole other league. I actually don't remember what this Rogue scream sounds like. And also Lucy, were you watching with me? I can't remember if she's asleep.
Rod just turned to his cat to ask how they felt about the scream. So
if I'm high enough, she speaks English, so I might have gotten these. I'm not high right now. That might have helped this episode. And wait, I didn't write down when credits cut. Is it or when the
that was the cut to the intro.
Okay, I didn't write that down. I was like, this would have been a good place for the intro. This is probably the intro. Then
please tell me that's what it actually says in your notes.
No, I just don't have, because I'm like, how far down in my notes I don't have the intro happen.
Yeah,
that's probably happened. This is my internal monologue. The next note I do have is that Scott and Jean come into the room to see what's going on. Kitty centers herself, which I guess is on character. This was kind of funny. She's like, oh, it scared me to death. We're like, yeah, okay.
Well, she said it scared her enough that she almost phased through the bed.
Yeah, so that part might have been a little, unnerving, especially now that we find out that she, like, can't completely control it. So you could just die if you phase wrong.
I wonder if it's a scenario where if she's still in the middle of something, there's a protection that she can't unphase until she's going to not die.
Maybe, I don't know.
Also, I have to send you Kitty on a murder spree using her phasing powers to kill people. That's a whole thing.
Does she go inside of people? Yeah,
That's a phrase I never want you to say again.
So this is not happening in any near future, but there's for decades there's been this rumors that NetherRealm's going to make or not decades, but years, there's been rumors that NetherRealm's going to make Marvel versus Mortal Kombat, and I do not see Disney allowing Marvel characters to have fatalities done on them. That whole thing is a setup for a perfect, because that's happened with Mortal Kombat characters. That would be epic to see an X-Man do that to Shao Kahn or something. I can just see the animation in my head. It's kind of like when Avatar: Last Airbender, or it's either that or Legend of Korra. They introduced, I think it was Legend of Korra, introduced the bloodbenders and stuff. You thought you knew the world, and then they were like, oh yeah, all those ramifications that you just didn't think about because they're not going to get into that. No, they exist.
Like that blood has water in it, so there's water benders. Okay.
Yeah.
I know nothing about the Avatar world aside from there are the 4 kinds of benders.
Oh, yeah. I really liked the series, and then Legend of Korra got darker because the first series was it still got a little real, but it was introduce all these happy characters and it's an anime thing. And then Legend of Korra was centuries later, I know, a long time later, and what are the real world ramifications of these things? But yeah, there was a part where they discover an old woman is oh, did you know there's water and blood? And that just opens up a whole horrifying chapter of this world.
So what I'm hearing is somebody needs to invite you on an Avatar podcast so you could promote our podcast.
Oh,
if you have an Avatar podcast, not the blue people, that you want to invite Rod on, hit us up.
Or if you do an Avatar podcast about the blue people and want me to go on random tangents about the other Avatar, I'll do that too.
It's true. Literally, any form of Avatar, it could literally be about your avatars on video games. He will just go for it. So,
or even more specific, if you have a podcast about Legend of Korra, because I know that has a smaller but more dedicated fan base, I would love to talk about it because, hot take, I like that series better.
I have no opinion of either.
Yeah. Anyway.
20 minutes and we are just past the intro credits.
So Rogue starts describing the nightmare, and then she says that these are dreams that this is not the first time, and she's been having these nightmares since moving to the Institute, which is kind of a dig on the Institute. It's oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Then it's kind of like the opening scene to American Pie, where
everybody just shows up.
And they just welcome themselves into this girl's room, and Nightcrawler's there, and Rogue slowly has that Dorothy waking up from the dream moment where you're
that's a really good description, Rod.
Yeah, she was it was you were the baby. I don't know how I know that because like you said, even in her dream she had a one frame visual.
There was a baby, I seem to know him somehow, and then she does the reveal with Kurt of oh.
Yeah, it was you, and he was wait, what? I just ran in here in the middle of the night. What's going on?
And then Professor X invades their minds.
Right. And even the kid, they acknowledge it because he's what's going on, blah, blah. And it's okay, Rogue, Nightcrawler, and
Jean come to the library.
Yeah. And Jean's why am I? Okay.
This is why I have so many unexcused absences.
Right. It's everybody else gets some sleep. You have finals tomorrow. And then the 3 other ones are fuck us, I guess.
Yeah. So we get no fucking privacy here.
Yeah. And that was the thing. When they were walking out of the room, they're wow, how often is he listening to us think?
Constantly.
You're also kind of assuming that I don't know how late it was, but it seemed it was pretty late, if they're in the middle of the night, and that Xavier might be asleep too.
I mean, I'm hoping it's oh, they went to bed at 11 o'clock and he was up at 11:30, but I doubt that's the case.
Yeah. Rogue, Jean, and Nightcrawler meet up with Xavier, and Xavier asks permission to go into Rogue's mind, and they all agree that that's a good place to start since she's the one that had the nightmare.
Well, Nightcrawler mentions that, his parents had said he was adopted, but they never mentioned finding him in a river.
They were fishing me out of the river. I was that might be something you leave out. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying, for example, my parents, have the extra layer of being immigrants, but also there's all this stuff about our family beyond, my grandparents, or even my parents' stories and stuff. And I'm I've caught wind that there's complications in it, or there's more. My dad specifically has always told me, he's when you're old enough, and I'm I am 40, I'll be 41 by the time this episode comes out. So I get parents just you know what? Finding you in the middle of a river Moses style? Yeah, okay, we get that. They just leave that part out.
Yeah, if your parents haven't told you by now, Rod, I don't think they're going to tell you.
No. I've gotten plenty of, not plenty, but I've gotten other information just from everybody else and stuff, and just don't bother them with it. So they probably still think that I'm, whatever. And
thank God your mom listens to the podcast.
Right. Watch this be the only thing she does listen to. She's I'm actually a big Evolution fan. Okay. If anybody knows this reference, you will also be surprised. My mom was any other teenage, like not teenage, like mom of a teenager growing up, where she always.
I was gonna say a teenage mom and a mom of a teenager are usually different things.
You know, just complain about how loud my music was growing up and stuff. But then, like, I put on this band called Stryper. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Nope.
They're a metal band, but they were also the very first Christian rock band, like the first popular one, to the point where, like, no one knew what to do with them. So they went on tour with Wasp as the Heaven and Hell tour. So it technically wasn't Christian rock because there wasn't a genre. They were just doing heavy metal, but with faith-based lyrics.
Right.
But kind of brilliantly. If you're into like metal music and you don't already know about Stryper, I would actually recommend it because they had stuff like their album called To Hell with the Devil, perfect metal name for a Christian band.
Yeah.
And then their greatest hits album was called Rock the Hell Out of You. This is like, I think that's actually really great. Anyway, my mom caught me listening to Stryper once. She's like, I love this. And she's like dancing in my bedroom. I'm like 13. I'm like, what is going on?
Your brother's definitely going to sell you out to your mom for this episode. Just want to point that out.
Or my mom already listened to this. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they start with Rogue.
Yeah. And basically, Xavier going to Rogue's mind is the dream, but a little clearer because we start seeing it's clearly a Mystique, and also extends beyond where the baby got dropped. We see that Mystique has actually like followed the baby down the river to where Kurt's parents found them. So I thought maybe it was that they didn't mention finding him in a river because maybe they didn't. Because Xavier actually mentioned that, like maybe something else happened. It looks like they actually did find him in a river.
Yeah, and she got like caught up just in time to see that. So that kid was floating for a minute because that was the middle of the night that he originally got dropped.
Yeah, and he has more powers than teleporting. If he's a newborn that floated down the river through daylight from the middle of the night.
Yep.
Survived.
It is at the very least 40 minutes of floating down that river,
right?
Because it was the middle of the night and that baby had no light hitting it. So
yeah, and also assuming that he floated, like
yeah. I mean, I know when I wrap something up in towels, it floats.
Right.
He was very gassy, so he was super buoyant.
There you go. So Xavier comes out of the mind probe. I don't know what you call it.
Yep, mind probe. Let's go with that.
And says that this isn't a nightmare. This is a repressed memory. And Rogue's like, well, why would I have memories of Nightcrawler's birth? And Xavier's like, well, it's probably a memory you've gotten from someone else. Then Nightcrawler's like, oh, it must have been me. Because I love his thing. This is, goofy kid thinking. Like, it must have been me since it's about me. And Xavier's like, maybe there's a chance you remember when you were one. Probably not.
Yeah, because he's like, oh yeah, do me next. And it's like, you were an infant, sir. That's not how this works.
And then Xavier says something that initially I thought was kind of cruel, and it still kind of is, but
it definitely is.
We get a clarification later. He's like, let's wait till tomorrow. It's pretty late. We'll do it after school tomorrow. And I was like, man, that would drive anyone crazy, especially a teenager, in the middle finals.
Yes, in the middle of the night after he just did it with Rogue. And it's like, obviously the reason he's doing it is he wants to address the Rogue part before he reveals stuff to Kurt. Mm-hmm. But it's like, oh, dude, I wouldn't be able to sleep. That would drive me absolutely insane.
Sleep, go to school, take a final, like,
right?
All that stuff. And then the reveal we get the next morning is that Xavier is actually talking to Mystique as Principal Darkholm.
Yeah. Which,
once again, we're starting to get more and more of a picture that they're... he's not even friendly, is not the right word. I keep saying that, but it's like cordial than we thought. Like, they're not at each other's throats every moment they're in the same room. Yeah,
they're still combative with each other, but it's not like physical violence, and they're obviously not aligned, but they're also like, nobody wants to throw the first punch, almost.
Yeah. So Xavier kind of just confronts her straight up, and he has all the details, and she keeps denying it. He's like, why did I see you in Rogue's, your memory in Rogue of Nightcrawler and blah, blah. And she keeps denying it. And then I think the thing that actually like kind of breaks her is when he mentions like the dusty old castle and Nightcrawler being the son. Mm-hmm. She like drops the book.
Yeah, it was essentially like he knows about the relationship, wants to know why she ran, and then he's like, well, I hope it was worth the loss of your son. And that was like, he kind of gave like the little twist of the knife there, and that's when she lost it.
And then she kicks him out, and on Xavier's way out, because he has to have the last word.
Yep.
He says, for what it's worth, he turned out to be a fine young lad. And I'm like, did she kill you then? I didn't completely know if she knew it was Nightcrawler.
I wasn't sure either, to be honest. I mean, I think we get a little bit of a moment in a few with Cyclops and Jean about it. But we also find out that the reason why Xavier went there is because he was probing her mind at the time.
Yeah, which we didn't see him get this information. But yeah, he radios back to Wolverine. It's like, I got the coordinates. And coordinates to what?
Wolverine does the takeoff from out of the waterfall in the Blackbird. I love all the different times you see the Institute. Sometimes there's water near it, sometimes there's not. I want to know how long the jetway that's underground actually is and how he got that built.
Yeah.
Because that's a big construction project.
For no one to know about. It's like the Batcave, right?
It's exactly like the Batcave. That is spot the fuck on.
Somehow no construction companies have any records or the hundreds of employees that it had to have taken to build this thing.
Bruce Wayne killed all those people.
Right. We're back at the school, and Nightcrawler looks like he can't concentrate, understandably. Bell rings, he turns in his final, and...
Very, confident and happy-go-lucky, too.
Right. I guess we don't know what final it is. What if it was German or something? He's like, I got this.
We also don't know how many finals he has. Rogue was the one with 3 finals. Kurt might be in remedial classes.
I don't know if they treat finals the same way as when we were in school, but where I went to school, and I don't think this is unusual, having the 3 or 4 finals in a single day, that seems so inhumane.
It is.
To kids and stuff, because I can understand having more than one or something. At least where I went to school, they were so huge and the comprehensive and stuff. To have to do several of those one after the other with a 5-minute hall break, not even a break, 5 minutes in the hall to make it to the next thing or whatever, cannot be good for you. But yeah, we don't know how many he had. That might have been his last of 3 or 4.
I mean, let's be honest. There's a reason why adults still have nightmares about high school. And we've been out of school for 20 years.
Yeah. Or like I said in one of my TikToks that upset some people, that I've been out of school longer than I was in it.
Yeah. You also love to say very controversial things about music on your TikTok.
That's kind of funny you say that too, because
I'm totally kidding. You don't actually say controversial shit. You piss people off without saying controversial shit.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I just basically talk about how much I love something, and I guess if I don't like it the way they like it, that's offensive. Also, Gen Xers are not okay. Gen Xers in my comments, not all of them, but a lot of them. There's so many Gen Xers in my comments being like, "That's our song." I'm like, okay, sure. You can also remember that hit song that came out when I was 14, which I feel like is a fair demographic for me to like a pop song.
They won't remember for that much longer. Don't worry.
Right. Anyway.
As we continue to piss off people of various age groups.
Right. Well, no, only now, if you're a listener of this podcast and you were one of those people that commented on my music TikToks about how something that's your song or whatever is directed towards you. Everyone else, you're fine. You're fine. We're all good. I'm a cusp Gen Xer, I'm an 82 baby, so.
But also, keep yelling at Rod in the comments because TikTok loves engagement and it can't tell what's positive or negative.
Like our mutual friend Billy says, Hollywood Drama Club. No one signs up, everyone's a member.
It's true.
Yeah, X-Men. Where were we on this?
So Kurt, Rogue catches up to Kurt as he leaves his classroom, and she's asking him why he's in such a rush. You know why he's in a fucking rush. He has all the unresolved issues about his parents that, why wouldn't he be rushing?
Yeah. Maybe because I found out that I was dropped in a river, possibly, and my biological mother might be out there. It's or I could just want to catch, He-Man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also never noticed this before, and I don't know if this has happened before. I only noticed it in this scene. When he's in human form, they still draw his fingers together in twos.
Now will be paying attention to that.
So in that scene, I noticed specifically all his hand movements. He was basically making the Vulcan.
Right.
I'm assuming it's because when the hologram masks him is covering his weird finger hand situation thing.
Right, because he only has 3 on each. Yeah. 3 mandibles.
Yeah, so the 2 on each ends are always connected when he's talking, and I was like, I wonder if that's always been that way, or I'm just now noticing it.
Well, now I'm going to notice it every time.
Yeah, and then speaking,
but that's fantastic attention to detail that they did that. But now, because of you from our last recording session, I noticed that his underwear is pulled up over his shirt now, and I can't. That was Kit that pointed out. Thanks, Kit. Yeah, now I can't not notice that.
Such a 90s thing. It was always the Tommy box or the Joe boxers or something.
Nope.
They're always showing. And I think that was the reason why you tuck your shirt into your underwear, right? To show off the underwear brand on the...
I didn't do it. My dad used to scream if I ever did that shit, so...
I didn't do that either because I liked wearing pants. But speaking of Nightcrawler's hologram thingy, he just says, fuck it. He gets rid of it. He doesn't just teleport away. He, turns it off in the middle of the hallway to the point where even Rogue visually is looking around wait, and then he teleports away before anybody can see him, I guess.
Right before he does that, she because he's well, don't you want to know more about your parents? And she acknowledges Irene, who we know is also Destiny, and she's no, she was strict, but she was cool. I feel she had a better relationship with her adoptive parents than he did, because he mentions it felt like something has always been kept from him and he didn't know what it was, which I understand if you are blue that you would feel that way.
And you were found in a river. And as far as we know, she wasn't.
No.
He's like, were you found in a river? Okay.
Yeah, and yes, he decides to turn off his watch to teleport, and I put near miss because there is a kid who's by Scott and Jean who just happened to be looking in their locker at that point. And then, of course, we get the reveal that that kid was Mystique. And that, I do think, that is the moment where she realizes that it is absolutely Kurt. I interpreted that shot as she had suspicions. She knew that Rogue was connected to the memory, and by overhearing that conversation, that's what confirmed it all for her.
You know, that just cleared up something for me, too. That's probably why they made sure to show him turning off his thing. Because they're probably...
Because of the near miss not actually being a near miss, yeah.
But I'm guessing, they probably haven't... I could be wrong about this, but that says to me that they haven't shown... Like, Mystique has never crossed paths with him, not in his human hologram thing.
You're right, I believe.
So maybe that was the moment where he turns it off so she can get a visual like, oh, that's him.
There are only so many blue kids of that age.
Yeah, blue kids with like pointed devil tail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because she would have remembered that her baby had a devil tail. And then I also put sad.
Yeah. Sad mama. And then she meets up with Quicksilver, hands him like a manila envelope. We don't hear her instructions, but he's like, why do you want me to break in? Are you sure I can? And she's like, yeah, you'll be fine. So I don't know if I would trust.
You're fast enough for the defenses.
It was either or. It's either like a huge misjudgment or underestimation of the mansion.
Or doesn't give a fuck about his safety.
Yeah, that or a huge security flaw in the mansion. We'll find out which one it is here in a minute.
Right. But again, that goes back to the last episode we were talking about the Juggernaut, where he was only quick enough to unlatch one latch. But it's this time it's like, oh, he's going to get by all defenses without even triggering them.
That is true, because he's much faster in this episode.
He's much faster.
So he knows it's a message for Nightcrawler. And so he asks, like, what's so important that you need to get this message to Nightcrawler? And she's like, that's none of your business. Just go do it. Which, since it's in, like, regular old manila envelope, 1,000% a high school student, teenager, is going to open up that envelope to read what's inside or find out what's inside.
Yeah, the fact that she trusted him with that was definitely a miss on her part.
He does go in, and he's not quite as fast as the Days of Future Past Quicksilver, but he's fast enough that Kitty doesn't see a person, just feels wind. Well, everybody in the mansion just thinks there's a draft.
Well, you did jump over a quick little part of it where Wolverine lands and he's in comms with Xavier, and then Xavier starts to detect Quicksilver, and then he does the run past, and Kitty literally is like, somebody just opened the window.
Yeah, so that's, like I said, like not quite as fast as the extreme we've seen, but like much faster than the last episode where you can only get like one latch
on Juggernaut. So Quicksilver is at the door. Kurt decides to teleport outside the door instead of just opening it. Doesn't see anybody in the hallway, and then when he goes back into the room, he sees the envelope on the ground.
And when he opens it up, there's just a note in it, which I guess kind of to Mystique credit doesn't actually say what the thing is. It just basically says, like, if you want to know the truth, meet at the mall construction site, which I love the datedness of it. That not only it's a mall reference, but a new mall.
Could you imagine hearing that somebody is building a new mall in 2023?
Right.
When was the last mall built? Because I guarantee, like, of any consequence, it has not been in the last decade.
I'm actually curious enough to look that right now. Last mall built
in America. Specify in America.
You know what's funny? Weird thing. As soon as you said that, it autofilled built in America. I must not be the only millennial looking for this. Oh, wow. Last mall built in America was American Dream Meadowlands in October 2019.
I'm sure that was a great time to open a mall.
Okay. Oh, yeah. December 20th, 2019. Or October 2019. Wait, what? Really? Is that true? That can't be true.
Where?
New Jersey. Oh, okay. So, I don't know if this counts. It has a theme park inside, so I would argue that this was more about the theme park than the shopping center, because it has a Nickelodeon themed theme park inside.
Well, okay. That was not what I was expecting you to follow up with.
Yeah, American Dream is located in New Jersey, a heartbeat away from New York City. Every New Yorker that listens to this is dying right now hearing that.
They do not believe that.
But yeah, it has a Nickelodeon universe, DreamWorks water park, which looks like it features Shrek on a surfboard, Angry Birds themed mini golf.
You have said nothing that makes this resemble a mall yet.
And then indoor ice skating rink, Legoland, Sea Life. That sounds like I don't know. Indoor surfing.
Again, you're literally talking about an amusement park. You have not said a single thing that is a mall store. Where is the Orange Julius? Where is the Wetzel's Pretzels?
Okay, so the stores tab does have like your normal like Apple Store, Best Buy. There's a bunch here more, and then where's the food stuff? Food and drinks. Let's see. This is always the telltale of what the scale of the mall.
Yeah, is it like Sbarro and Panda Express? Because if not, I don't know if this is actually a mall.
Okay, so far we have Cinnabon, so that's
mall
stuff.
Yep.
There's a lot of restaurants in here. Five Guys. Oh, it has the Jollibee.
I have no idea what a Jollibee is.
Jollibee is really big with like the Filipino community. So like, whenever the Jollibee is built somewhere, it's like a huge deal. In the U.S., it's a huge deal. There's a Taco Bell in there. And there is a Wetzel's Pretzels.
Okay.
Wetzel's Pretzels.
There's two. It's definitely a mall,
right? There's like 3 kiosks. There's a Mr. Beast Burger. I didn't know they had physical locations.
Isn't there a big lawsuit going on right now?
Yeah, he's suing he's suing the company. It's the whole thing. Oh, there's a Mrs. Fields cookie. That's the real one.
Oh, okay.
That's how you know it's a mall.
Yep.
Anyway, wow, okay, more you know. Aren't you glad you listened to this?
Scott knocks as Kurt teleports out.
Yeah.
And hides the note, of course.
Hides. He puts it in a drawer with other notes.
I mean, we've established the X-Men have no concern over privacy and will go through your personal belongings if you're missing for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Usually it's Jean.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Spoiler. It's gonna be
I was referring to Jean and Weapon X Lies and Videotape episode.
She just goes through like his photos of lovers.
With herself included.
Right. Maybe a spy. Now, that brings into question the other women, right? Were they actually partners?
Yeah, were they actually in love with him, or was he just stalking them creepily?
Right. They all have a partner cut out of them.
Yep.
Like the one with Scott. Then we cut away to Quicksilver, kind of like some nondescript place away from the mansion, but not quite back at the school, where he's reporting back to what you initially are supposed to think is Mystique. Or not Mystique, maybe one of the other
Brotherhood kids. Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I read the note. And they wants to meet up with Nightcrawler. But then he reveals it's Magneto he's talking to.
Right.
Which makes sense because, they established they made a deal several episodes ago. It hadn't come back to it until right now.
Yeah, he mentions that Wolverine and the Blackbird are both gone, and Magneto gives him the order to make sure to intercept before Nightcrawler gets to Mystique.
Mm-hmm. And then he says he's going to go take care of Logan.
Yeah, he sees him arrive.
And then I was like, oh, where's Logan? And then the very next scene is like, Logan arrives at Castle.
Yep.
Okay, those were the coordinates he was getting. And then there's a big montage of Logan fighting through like high-tech Temple of Doom traps, basically.
Yeah, death traps, yeah.
There's like a thing that like freezes him and shocks him, normal like gauntlets and cannons and stuff.
I did like he breaks one of the laser turrets, like he chops it off like at the neck, quote unquote, and then it zooms forward and crashes into the other one. Like it looked like a weird Rube Goldberg machine effect.
Yeah. And then he finally gets into the room he's getting at, which I guess there's only one room at the end of this corridor. He knew exactly where he was going. And it's just destroyed. Clearly a lab. And also looks very much like the lab we saw in Rogue's Dream. Right.
And he's able to put together, it's a DNA lab.
He said that to Xavier, because him and Xavier are they radioing or telepathic? I think they're radioing.
Radio. Yep.
At that point. And I was like, so...
Did he smell that it was a DNA lab?
Yeah, because...
What is the smell of a DNA lab?
I know something that he would be able to smell that would indicate there's DNA in the lab. Something that I thought Sinister was collecting in 92.
He mentions that it's basically destroyed and somebody decided it was the appropriate time to pull out.
I missed that line.
He literally says pull out.
Oh man. Okay. So now they knew what they were doing.
If they don't, they are the most innocent human beings on the planet because that was the most double entendre as fuck scenario possible in this show so far.
That was like quadruple entendre.
The shoot I was on a couple weeks ago, as of when this goes live, there was somebody talking about a sperm bank during that shoot. And now, real time, this is only like 5 days later. That's what comes to mind. Whatever that building smells like is what that lab smells like.
Oh, you know what? Have you ever
No, I'm already going to answer that. No, I have not.
No, every once in a while you think about you need to keep a catalog of other people's jobs in your mind to make you realize that your job is not that bad.
Okay.
So imagine the people that have to work. Anybody, janitor, a nurse, a receptionist at a sperm bank, for the smell alone.
This is what's going to get us banned from Apple Podcasts.
Right. Because it's kind of like, when I was a teenager and I was looking for work at a mall, of course, I remember one of my hard lines was I don't want to work at Abercrombie, or not that they would have hired me anyway, or Yankee Candle. I would have a migraine.
Dude, I can't go into a Yankee Candle because I start having an allergy attack.
Yeah. And so same thing with the specific kind of bank. Would be like,
You would have a headache from working at a sperm bank.
Yeah, right. Or just PTSD, one or the other.
But yeah, so then Wolverine realizes there is a timer on a bomb there, and he just launches himself out a fucking window.
Oh yeah, he's like, Xavier, gotta go.
I love that he took the time to say, "I'll get back to you," basically, and then he jumps out the window.
He's an action hero. He knows how it works. He has to do the dramatic, like, away from the castle exploding.
Yeah, it's not a full superhero landing because that was, like, not a trope at the time. But he jumps out of this, I mean, that's got to be at least 40, 50 feet up. Right. And then as the castle proceeds to collapse around him, he just stays just in front of, like, the smoke cloud of, like, all the debris breaking and everything.
This is a magic castle. And, like, Wolverine can survive the explosion of literal... newborn can survive being dropped into a river hundreds of feet down.
It's a very lucky castle.
Right. And then we cut back to the mansion.
Jean invades people's privacy.
Yeah, Jean leads Scott into... Or was it Jean? I know it. Jean.
It's Scott and Jean together in there, yeah.
They go into Nightcrawler's room like, Xavier told us to find something. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Yeah. I guess I kind of get it. I remember being in dorms in college. There was a very, like, blurry line of privacy. If there was enough suspicion, your
RA could go in, but a cop can't.
Oh, really? I didn't know those.
Yeah. Oh, your RA has permissions, but a cop cannot be let in unless the RA let them in.
Yeah, I remember RA had to key into my room a couple times because I'm a really hard sleeper.
They just kept thinking you were dead.
We have enough tangents. Me and my roommate this one year, both of our girlfriends at that time were also roommates in the girls' dorm, and we had separate, non-co-ed dorms. We were supposed to go to dinner or something with them or whatever, like just normal dinner, not a date or anything. And I guess we were both like sleeping super hard, and on our perspective, we woke up to our that's hard to say, our RA.
There you go.
Opening up our door with both our girlfriends coming in, and they were just pissed because what they walked into was us dead asleep with the phones ringing, the alarms going off, and then they were knocking originally and stuff. And they were like, "What's going on? We thought you guys had died or something wrong happened." And because this was in 2001 or 2 or something.
Yeah.
Still landlines. There's no cell phones or anything. So there's all this noise happening. Like, how are you sleeping? They're just like, what?
How were you sleeping? It was fucking going out for dinner. It's not like you were like out drinking or something.
Going to school for the program I did, we were like put through the gauntlet, so we were just like exhausted and just.
Okay.
So I'm not quite as hard a sleeper now, but anyway, so that is when I learned that. Oh yeah, Kevin, he can come in here anytime he wants.
Yeah, because he thought you were. He thought it was a double murder. Okay.
Right. Or we didn't survive finals. Anyway,
but yeah, Xavier knows that Quicksilver was in the Institute, and then Jean invades privacy and finds. I do love one of the hints is Scott opens the stereo, which I did remember seeing that stereo when you saw Kurt's room in his first episode, and he pulls out a cassette from it, and I'm like, Scott, what the fuck do you think is going to be there?
That you bring up a good point because it kind of showed like the logic between the two characters. Because Jean's like, let's look in the desk drawer where you keep documents.
And Scott is looking at the B-side of a cassette.
He's judging his music taste. He's like,
yeah, he's literally just going in there to be bitchy.
And then we see Nightcrawler arriving at the construction site, and man, this was the mall was nowhere near done.
That was literally like they were just breaking ground on that shit.
And Hooded Woman is there, reveals herself as both Mystique and Nightcrawler's mother. He is having a panic attack.
By the way, I think there was a subtle reference there in the response that he gives. She reveals herself, and he knows whoever is there is the person revealing to be his mother. And he says, no, it's impossible. Because she says, son. The quote from Empire Strikes Back is, no, that's not true. That's impossible. I think it was a paraphrase of Empire with Luke and Vader.
Star Wars, yeah. Mandela effect controversy. It's not, I am your father.
Right. But yeah, it was like as soon as he says son, and it's impossible, I was like, wait, and I literally like pulled up. The easiest way to find it was finding memes and GIFs of it. And I was like, oh, okay, it's no, that's not true. That's impossible. And it was like, oh, okay, that definitely felt like a nod for me.
Yeah, and they just 2 episodes ago, they made Star Wars reference.
No, they made Star Trek references too.
I meant specifically with the Star Wars thing.
Oh, the Spike one. But yes, there were, yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in X-Men 92, where the things from the youth of that writing group inspired some of the jokes that they made. And then this is definitely like the next generation of writers coming in, and Star Wars would have been the prominent pop culture reference for them growing up. So
yeah. And also, actually, you know what? The timing of this, Star Wars was making a comeback.
Because it was, 99 when they started doing the special editions?
But also the prequels.
Right. I don't remember when the prequels started, but I know at the very least they did the re-releases of special editions.
Yeah,
so
I think it was around 99 because I was in the middle of high school when the prequels started coming out, because that's how I got introduced to Star Wars.
Yep.
I mean, I knew about Star Wars before, but in like the abstract, like it was in the pop culture. When episode 1 came out, that's when like me and my group of friends, we went to go see it and we experienced it for the first time and stuff. So actually that makes sense that it was already a reference for the previous generation, but also Star Wars was like in the cultural conversation at that point. So yeah,
then
that's a really good chance.
Then fast forward, 20 years, and we have Tom Holland as Spider-Man referring to Empire as like that old movie. Fuck, we're old, Rod.
Yeah. The Brotherhood kids arrive and start fighting, and Mystique's like, no, get out of the way. And I think Quicksilver's like, sorry, we have
higher orders.
And the Nightcrawler's confused. He's like, what is your game here? And I was like, yeah, he'd probably be confused because he doesn't even know about Magneto, I don't think any of the kids know about Magneto yet.
Right. No, the only one who would know about Magneto is Quicksilver and Mystique.
Yeah, and the Brotherhood now, I guess, we're assuming, because they're getting other orders, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be something where they like decided this was the right way to go.
But yeah, especially the X kids don't know about Magneto, so Nightcrawler's like, what Mystique, what are you doing? Like, because she's trying to get them to stand down, but they're still attacking, so he's confused. Like, what's your game here? They get in a little bit of a scuffle.
I refer to it as a comedy fight. It wasn't anywhere near as serious a fight as the previous episode with Juggernaut, I feel like.
Yeah, it was definitely like unplanned, and like how it's kind of showing that the kids like kind of came up with on their own, and then the X-Men show up in their superhero stance.
Yes,
and they all fight. I didn't take any notes on the fight itself. I think I just like kind of remember that it was like a pretty well like action sequence.
Yeah, Toad gets stuck on the wrecking ball. Blob charges into the cement mixer. Like that's why I say it felt like a comedy fight scenario.
Blob being the cement mixer would have probably killed him, because even besides like just forest, if you've got concrete on anything, let alone your base inside, you probably swallow it. I don't think it too much. But then he could eat anything. That's his other superpower.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think that's canonical, but that's what I'm going with.
And then it comes to a boiling point where Rogue absorbs Avalanche's powers and then uses those to stop Mystique. And you think you got her, and then up comes another power that we were talking about a couple episodes ago, where she just turns into I initially thought crow, but then I remembered it's probably a raven.
Yep.
And she flies away.
The one thing that did happen is before she does transform, is she basically says it's far too late for answers. So I think she felt like she had one shot with Kurt to fix stuff, and the Brotherhood showing up fucked that up for her, in her eyes at least.
Probably discredit trust. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Well, especially when Nightcrawler's literally asking, like, what game are you playing? Like, like, no matter what she says right now, even if it is the most sincere response, he's probably not going to believe her. At least how she feels about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would feel probably the same way.
Yeah.
And then at the mansion, Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean are talking with Xavier about the lab.
And Xavier is shocked that Magneto was willing to go that far, that he was experimenting on other mutants.
Yeah, and they still weren't clear on what happened there, and I'm guessing that's something that is going to be expanded on in the upcoming seasons.
So the one piece of trivia I was able to find out about this episode, this was from the fandom wiki for X-Men Evolution. Greg Johnson, who is a writer and producer, basically said in an interview, which of course they didn't link to the interview because annotations don't mean shit, but essentially he was experimenting to make the X gene activate sooner. And he had succeeded.
Oh, so that's why he did Dick Hurt.
Right, which is why every other mutant would be born, human, and then you wouldn't see powers manifest until they hit their teen years.
That is a good retcon, because that would make more sense for Nightcrawler, because in 92 or any of the previous X-Men stuff, we have Beast and Nightcrawler exist in the same space, but completely different backstories of how they became blue or furry or physically manifested.
Right.
And so if Magneto just had activated Nightcrawler's powers at birth,
and that's why Raven was referring to him as a monster, because she basically activated the thing that makes him a weapon when he's still a baby.
And it also gives the show name merit, evolution. Hey, they said the thing. Kind of.
Literally, mutants are all about evolution, Rod. God damn it. As they're talking about that, with the genetic experimentation, you also get sad Wolverine for a second. Did you notice that? Like, he literally, like, hearing about experimentation, it was the first time we've seen any sort of, like, moment of weakness for Logan in this show. It's very subtle, but he, like, walks away and isn't facing them either.
This was, I remember this now, because Xavier decides to, because Jean and Scott are like, all right, when are you going to tell Kurt?
And Wolverine is like, he doesn't need to know yet. It could be damaging to him.
One of the reasons I remember this part is because, once again, I watched the captions. He clearly said the elf isn't ready for it yet. The caption said the oaf isn't ready for it yet, which completely changes the context.
That is what we call a fuck up.
Yeah.
Because they definitely said elf.
Elf, yeah.
That's some auto caption bullshit. That's like auto captioning for TikTok.
Yeah, maybe, but I also think it was probably someone, like, because I know some people who don't, not for this show, but do like captioning and stuff for other like programming.
If they were for this show, they were going to have a very harsh DM from me if it was accurate. You know?
and it was probably just like it was probably rushed, right? I'm going to guess it was probably also somebody who doesn't know the show, so
yep,
they probably just put it in there. But I don't know. It's so funny because also, if they did know the show and were like not rushed, they probably wouldn't put Mystique speaking at the very beginning of the episode. Because usually in these captions it just says woman's voice or something. You're not supposed to know who they are. But so Wolverine. I forgot. Maybe it's because I have to keep reminding myself that this is Wolverine.
Yeah.
I know that's dumb because you can see him, but like his whole history doesn't connect with me yet because I'm not used to this version of the character.
Yep.
Yeah, so he has all the Weapon X stuff behind him that
in this show nobody has talked about yet.
Mm-hmm. And so we don't even know if anybody besides maybe Xavier knows about it.
I mean, maybe Storm too, because she's the other adult in there. But yeah, it may just be that trio. Because we do know that this version of Xavier hides shit from the kids.
Right.
And really, I don't know if you want to mention, like, oh, the guy who's also the trained killer was experimented on.
Yeah. And so Xavier, even though it wasn't his idea necessarily, still decides not to tell the kids about something. But also, that's a huge burden on Scott and Jean, because I think they're the only ones that actually know.
Yeah.
Amongst the kids. Then we cut away to the balcony where Rogue and Nightcrawler are talking. They're having a heart-to-heart. And basically, Rogue is like, do you want to know more or whatever about this? And Nightcrawler says, I think Xavier knows more and it just isn't telling me.
Right.
Which is a good observation to make based on previous experiences.
Which I love, because so much of this season has revolved around narratives of trust. Like, should Rogue trust the X-Men? And we've talked about that when she decided to join them. And they know that he's hidden shit before. And I'm sure it even started questioning for Kurt when, aside from even the Mystique reveal of it, like, why didn't he go into his mind that night when he could have, when he made a big deal about going into Rogue's mind, but he didn't go into his. So
yeah, and Kurt, I guess is more mature than most people. He says like he probably has his reasons if he's not telling me. He's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, he says he's got good reasons probably, and that's where again, he's 14, 15 at most in this, but also Rogue was questioned, like, well, do you think that Mystique was messing with you?
Yeah, that's true. Because she's like, Mystique, she's literally deceptive. It's like her whole thing.
Right. And we still, at this point, do not have the full reveal to Rogue that it's her adoptive parent. Yeah, and Rogue is basically like saying she can relate, even though she can relate more than she even knows right now, and says that they'll find the answers together on it.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's one of the things where it's obviously we can't go into this with a totally clear, perspective on the X-Men, but it's like, imagine if that was the first time you were watching it, and it's like the double 1-2 punch of like these characters being related.
Yeah. And then we cut away briefly to the school, and Principal Darkholm / Mystique is looking out the window and sees a mom drop her daughter off at school. Yeah. And just has like this sad parent moment, I guess.
Sad Mystique. Which I feel like if you were the person who had to abandon your kid for whatever reason, becoming a principal is probably literally daily torture for you.
Yeah. And not that anybody knew that when she got put in that position, but like probably the most dangerous person to put in the position. Someone who can morph, has superpowers, and has issues.
I mean, we have not seen Cody, or whatever the fuck is, not Cody. Who is the friend who disappeared in the cave?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot his name.
It wasn't Cody, because Paul, yeah, because Cody is Rogue's ex.
This show has called back enough times that I wouldn't be surprised if Paul showed up in a locker at the school at some point or something.
But like as like a body.
Maybe, yeah. Or just like, like they make a reference like, I have a headache. I've been passing out a lot lately or something, or
He's just completely unaware. He's constantly being drugged and just hidden in lockers and shit.
yeah.
And it's like the end of that 90s era where like bullying was the punchline of a joke.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, he ends up in the locker again. It's like that kid is being bullied and this is not okay, guys. You have to stop.
That's true. That was the big trope. Like not another teen movie where that one guy who he parodied in Varsity Blues. Mm-hmm. Like his whole gag was he kept getting concussions every scene he was in. He's like, oh, that's funny. He's getting a brain injury.
Oh, Billy Bob.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Every time, like, he'd get knocked in the head with something, like something would fall off the stand, and he had, like, the running joke was literally every scene he had, I think he had a concussion.
Well, yeah, and at the end of the movie, he literally was, like, duct taped to two of his teammates on the football field. Oh, man. We are not going to become a Not Another Teen Movie podcast, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, that was actually the only piece of trivia was what were the actual experiments. That was all I found, man. It's so wild to me that some of these wikis are like hardcore, have basically the full scripts for certain episodes, and then other episodes it's like, nope, nobody gave a fuck.
Yeah, that's weird too. Yeah, because this would have been the one to have a lot of Easter eggs in it, because diving into someone's history.
Yeah,
even though it was a deceptive history, that was gonna be Kitty. But yeah, anyway,
I definitely thought it was gonna be a Kitty episode.
Yeah, it's all right.
But we got Lockheed.
Oh, there you go.
Even though he was the wrong color, because Lockheed is purple and the dragon she was holding was green.
It was like Puff the Magic Dragon.
But this is also why I don't trust a lot of the wikis, and I will always call out the names of them so we don't take heat on it. Some of the wikis actually said the purple dragon stuffed animal, and I'm like, that wasn't fucking purple. I purposely noted that it was a green stuffed animal.
Would it be wild though if we found out there was like some change when it went to like home video or something, I
mean, we know that that's a thing that happens. There's a reel that is going around from Friends right now where it had the original Phoebe dancing sexy as her twin sister or something like that, and they are literally next to each other, and they are two different shots, and one was the original broadcast and then the home video release are very different.
And even as recent as Across the Spider-Verse,
right,
there were 3 different versions in theaters.
Yep.
And then the home version is different than all of them.
Yes, but I feel like that is the one where it actually canonically makes sense. Yes,
I'm kind of I'll hold my suspicions for that for another time. But like, yeah, it's an interesting. I don't know. I doubt that's what happened here, because it doesn't sound like they care. If they put oaf instead of elf, it sounds like they didn't care enough to make those kind of changes. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe it was just VHS transfer, like that tape had degraded so much. Like, is that gray or purple? Or
I think that was a wiki editor who was reaching a little bit.
Yeah. We're coming close to the end of the season, only 3 more episodes, and the last 2 were a 2-parter, so technically only like 2 more stories, really.
Oh, is it? I haven't even looked ahead. Like, I'm taking this episode by episode, aside from our tracking sheet on Excel, so.
I was, until the finale was
spoiled for you.
On TikTok. Anyway.
I'll throw this out there. If you guys, as fans, have any thoughts of who you would like us to have as guests, let us know.
Yes, definitely. Especially because we don't know what's coming up, so we don't really know who to ask besides general. Like, Kit picked the episode because she liked what happened in it. But
and then our buddy Scott could not be on the episode he wanted because he was getting married.
Yeah.
Again, so selfish. So selfish, Scott.
Yeah. And also, if you know some more details and have like references for him, let us know, because he said we have like very limited resources in this.
Yeah, we'll announce corrections weeks later. So
yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them into the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing.
Although I don't know why you'd like what you heard, considering these episodes have gotten so much weirder, but yes, thank you.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. I think Lucy is about to mount my head.
Can verify.